Hey everybody, it's Sarah Black Spiker here. I'm doing something that I have not done before, and here's what it is. I just got off the live stream video, take 2, and it felt so disconvoluted. Is that even the word? It just did not feel coherent, did not feel like I was myself, and it did not feel like I did the service to those of you who will be watching the replay. So I decided I'm gonna do take 3, third time's a charm, and I'm gonna go over the content again. It will be shorter than the original one, but my intention is that it's more coherent and more impactful, and especially that it flows better than the first 2 attempts have. What is the reason for that? Yesterday I got some devastating news. I barely got any sleep, and today was a very active day. And just as I pressed the going live button, my dog started to bark like crazy, and it threw me off. And I wanted to restart, but then again, it was like, oh my gosh. I restarted, what I'm gonna say, gotta make sure that I say all the right things here, and the audience can actually feel me. And it didn't work out. So I was having a very human experience. So we're going to start this and we're going to try this again. So legacy blueprinting, what I intended to talk to you about is initially the idea was about architecting the aligned revenue system that honor your truth and time and trajectory and so on and so forth. But as I was getting ready for the masterclass for today, and based on yesterday's experience, something that just wouldn't leave me alone, and I had to go back and redraw blueprints, no pun intended here, for today's session. So I wanted to include more wider content, and I also wanted to elevate the conversation above what I initially planned. So what we're going to be talking about here is going beyond just the revenues for your business if you're in business, because legacy at the end of the day is just so much more. So why don't we start there? I'm gonna flip the script and I'm gonna start at the end. Actually, one of the things that I wanted to offer as a assignment, every one of those videos has, in this series at least, it has a set of actionable steps at the end. And one of them I wanted to offer is to redefine what your legacy is, what your definition of your legacy is, how you envision that legacy piece. But as I was working on it, I was like, well, what even is legacy in that sense of the word? So I've offered, and I'm offering this again, is to really think about what are the legacy markers, meaning how do you want people to feel when they engage with you? How do you want them to feel when they engage with your work? How do you want them to feel when they engage with your leadership and your presence? Because at the end of the day, it's how we make people feel that is memorable. And anything beyond that, actually even how we make them feel, is kind of out of control, but it's our intention that matters. When I did that for myself, actually, there were a couple of things that were coming up, and some of them are a little bit poetic, if I can be quite honest here. But ultimately what kept coming up, and the way that I did it for myself is I wasn't just thinking from my perspective of what I would like to experience. Should I be my own client, or should I be my own spouse, or should I be my own child? But I went back and also gathered and looked through the feedback that I'm receiving. And one of the things that I actually was really pleased to notice and honored to notice is this sense of safety and security, and sense of just like this warm hug. A lot of people would say that it feels just like a warm embrace, and this gift of feeling seen, having people feel seen, heard, understood, gift of hearing what they're not saying, feeling what they're not expressing, just getting everything that's been between the lines as well, and seeing beyond what they even thought was possible for them. So there's just a little snippet there. So yeah, the first thing I wanted to do when we're talking about legacy blueprinting, what is legacy even in your own definition? And then the blueprinting part, what are the blueprints? The first thing that probably comes to mind is that huge blue piece of paper with white lines on it that is being used in architecture and construction, right? Yeah, that's exactly what it is. But blueprints, in a sense, also are the systems and structures and routines and infrastructure and our habits and everything else that make us tick throughout the day, that make us function within our homes, within our working environment, within our society, and that allow the society at large to function. How well? Well, that could be up for debate, especially in current state of affairs. But we're not going to be talking about that right now. Although, believe me, I have a lot to say there. But blueprinting, I also want you to try to shift the perspective a little bit. And imagine that now you have that huge blue piece of paper with your own blueprints, with your day's blueprints, with your work's blueprints, with the blueprints that you need to function, that you have created, and that allowed you to create the success that you have built, and that allowed you to come to the point where you are right now. And just take a look at them. And this is where we're gonna play today, like understanding what are the load-bearing structures in those blueprints for you, and what are those walls that could be knocked down, what are some of the installations that could be moved, what are some of the walls that could be turned into windows, what are some of the windows that could be turned into doors. You know, we get to play. And then I also wanted to get a little bit more playful, taking it even further. What those blueprints do not have is the interior design. Those blueprints don't tell you what kind of wallpaper you should be using, what kind of drapes, what kind of furniture, what colors, what textures, and so on, and the patterns and everything that makes it yours. So it's time to have fun with that. And the reason I'm saying this is, if you're like me, and if you're like most of my clients and most of the people who are within my circles who gravitate towards me, you have achieved tremendous success in your life. But you came to the point where like, okay, great, but now what? I played by the rules, I implemented those blueprints, I navigated my life within the blueprints that were presented to me by my family, by schools, by athletic teams, you name it, right? You mastered playing within that structure, you mastered the game of excellence, and at one point you realize, holy shit, I sacrificed a great deal of myself in order to pursue that level of excellence along the way, and to achieve all these results, and to please all these people, and gain the approval, and gain the acceptance, and whatever applies here for your life. But again, if you are like most of us in my circles, you also are at the point when you're ready to take the sledgehammer and a wrecking ball and just start knocking down some walls and really recreate things in a way that work for you. So this is where initially I thought about the revenue streams, but then I was like, but this is it just didn't sit right with me. And I wanted to expand it to business plans, and still it was a little too small. But then I encountered a challenge. See, we do have an expression, business plan, right? It is a expression that pretty much tells what the business is, how it operates, how it functions, what it sells, at what price points, how it markets, the whole 9 yards is pretty much a business blueprint. But we don't necessarily have the equivalent to it when it comes to life and lifestyle and home dynamics, right? But for most people who are coming to me at this stage, at this iteration of the business, that's the main tripping point for them, right? Yeah, years ago when I first started, it was ultimately the business plan that we started to tweak, because, you know, the issues of, I would like to have more time to spend with the kids. I'd like to be able to travel more with my family. I just feel overwhelmed. I feel like I created this huge machine now that is awesome. It ticks off all the boxes. It creates incredible amount of opportunities for other people, but it cannot function without me, and I'm stuck in it, and it just keeps on growing, and I feel like it's just not what I want to do anymore, but I can't walk away because I don't want to let people down, right? That is a very relatable and very real issue. Or for example, I created all this success, and I'm afraid that if I try to walk away and start anew, that I will topple off everything that I worked my ass off. And that's another level of attachment, right? We have invested so much time, so much energy, so much effort. We have sacrificed so many years of our lives, blood, sweat, and tears, to just then walk away? Hell no. What can we do? So we tend to hold on to it, right? Oftentimes what happens is while we're holding on to it, life has little different plans, and ultimately it can pull the rug from underneath us. And like, well, if you're not letting go, then we're going to make you let go. Now go deal. So those are the people who would come to me. Or I would get people come to me who say, you know, I have all the plans. I have everything, infrastructure, the tools, the whole shebang. It worked and it just doesn't work anymore. And I've been there too. And it's freaking frustrated. And all of these things are simply addressed and fixed, and the whole lives have changed by simply shifting, changing, redesigning, re-envisioning, rebuilding, recreating their business plans. Now, when people are coming to me, it's like, okay, great. That, and I also want to make sure that I have this rhythm in my life. How do I establish that rhythm that works for me where I am right now, that works for my family, wherever we are right now, that allows not just the time or freedom, but is also meaningful and it's fulfilling and it makes sense, right? Those are a little bit more complex questions. But again, there's no such thing as equivalence of a business plan when it comes to lifestyle. But that's what we ultimately are creating too. So in that case, you know, I do want to offer that when you are at a space, when you feel like you just want to take a sledgehammer and knock everything down, get creative, but you must understand what are the things that are structural for you, what enables the structural integrity of your own well-being, your own life, your own functioning as a human being, as an individual, as well as within the family, or, you know, I want to say private circles and professional circles and so on and so forth. So some of the tools that I have discovered along the way have served me really well too. Because let's be honest, my background is in athletics. And as an athlete, there was not much wiggling room there. The schedule of practices was set, the game schedules were set, the school schedules were set, the expectations were set, the priorities were set, the areas of focus were very well known, so there was not any wiggling room there. We knew what we wanted. We paced our practicing and everything else to get into towards peak performance at a very specific time, and we knew what to do to minimize the risk of injuries, and so on and so forth. So in a sense, just getting on my own feet as a student, as an employee, as a wife, as a business owner, as a mom. In addition to all of those roles having to figure it out, I had to figure out what is the rhythm that works for me. Because for the first time in my life, I got to set my own schedule. And it turned out that, hey, I'm not so much the evening performer than I am a morning person. Maybe I'm not so much a rah, super loud leader who leads by example and rallies up the entire team, that I'm a soft, quiet, however, still powerful person who embraces the quiet in the morning and who gets mountains moving when she moves with her energy. And I'm not so much a person that will crack the whip, but I help my people create miracles by creating this sense of safety and security for them. I'm not 6'1" without a reason, right? And in this body built at this moment without a reason. So it's the physical, it's the energetic, it's the mental, it's the emotional presence. It just is. And I start to own it because I start to understand how I function. And the tools that allowed me to uncover that were very, very, very diverse, very versatile also. And it started a couple of years ago, and everything was very intellectual. So for example, strength finders or DISC assessment, or there's one more, Colby assessment. They're very brain based, so to speak, but they offered first and very apt insight, and it allowed me to understand, oh, this is why I gravitate towards this, and this is why this is so much easier for me, and this is why that feels like pulling teeth. But the more that I evolved and the more that I moved through my own journey of the evolution of unlearning and evolving and dissolving and rebuilding and so on and so forth, the more the tools became, I wanted to use the word intangible, if that makes sense. Because the first one of that set of the intangibles that I was introduced to was human design. And when I first got the results, it's like, human what is that sorcery? What is that? I didn't understand what it means to be a generator in 3-5 line and sacral authority. It was all gibberish to me. But when I started to study and when I dived deeper, I was like, oh, that actually makes a lot of sense. And oh, I recognize that. And oh, now I know why. But it also allowed me to be kinder to myself and stop judging things that were so natural for me. And it especially gave me a permission to stop trying to contort myself into boxes where I no longer belonged, or trying to mimic something that somebody else was modeling, because it was never going to work for me. That doesn't say, however, that just because something says in those assignments or assessments that it's written in stone and you cannot change it. Just have some discernment there. Another tool that was really helpful for me was natal chart reading. In fact, the first time I got across natal chart reading was a gift from my mom at the age of, I believe it was 60. And it was incredible when the person was reading things to me and I was like, yeah, sure. English, my primary language, 2 homes, boulders in the backyard, writing as a source of revenue, the main profession. Yeah, sure. It was so fun to discover that cassette tape all those years later. And I spilled the water out through my nose when I was listening to it during one of the visits home here in Slovenia. And my mom, when they were moving, she found the cassette tape, so she gave it to me and I was listening to it. And it literally said there will be boulders in my backyard and I will be living close to water. Because you know what? Not only were there boulders in the back of our house in the backyard, we lived in a place called Stony Point. and we lived in a county called Rockland County. It doesn't get any more stony than that. And we had a view of the Hudson River. I mean, mind-blowing. Then, equipped with that knowledge, it's like, okay, so writing does play a huge part in my life. So maybe journalism degree was not in vain. Maybe the fact that I write every day like it's my oxygen is not in vain. And maybe partnering up with one of the premier American companies that writes executive resumes and professional biographies and narratives and so on and so forth. Like, oh, okay, all right, got it. I get it, right? So, see, all these little pieces start to come together, and I was able to see and assess my life and rearrange my priorities and just go with the flow a lot differently and fight that flow less. But then I think the one that really changed everything, and especially changed my life and perspective of myself, was so-called Omega Codex, which was created by brilliant Christina. And that just was a whole different universe out there when I got, when we sat down and she did that reading and dissect everything. And it also made sense why certain things that used to work simply stopped working. And some of the things that I kept being pulled towards, but I just couldn't make them work. And at the same time, I just couldn't give up on them. And it came through that, yeah, because this is my mission here. It's what I came here to learn. Obviously, it's hard because I'm still learning it, but obviously I can't quit because it is clearly at the core of why I am here and the core of the services that I am meant to offer. And equipped with all of that, I was able to go back and iterate my business, iterate my offers. I was able to also honor the fact that, you know what, I knew all along that I'm not for the masses, but that was just kind of like, oh yeah, okay, got it. Now I can allow myself to claim the fact that I'm not for the masses, but I'm for select few. I want to say high velocity experiences, this deep level of intimacy, deep level of trust, deep level of, when I think about my ideal client, the conversations go something like this. The client calls like, oh my gosh, I'm freaking out today. But I know them to the point when I say, yeah, because it's a day before a full moon, or a new moon, go pet your cat and go take a walk, go down to the beach, and we'll talk tomorrow, right? That level of understanding of the client, that level of access, the emergency access, but that also means only working with a handful of clients, and that really is my highest level of service. And I was finally able to claim it. Then, a couple of weeks ago, I had a huge revelation again, and this is another thing that I want to talk to you about when it comes to not just you going back and looking at what works for you and what no longer works. Knowing that even when you decide to take the sledgehammer and start knocking down the walls of your own blueprints, now that you understand what is the thing that is maintaining structural integrity that allows you to thrive, you also now understand that even though you're going to be knocking things down, doesn't mean you're starting from scratch. It simply means that you are remodeling. You have all the materials already available, and you're just moving things around, and you're releasing things, and you're replacing walls with windows, and you're replacing windows with doors, right? Then what I wanted to offer that you do is redrawing your energetic blueprint. So the first thing you're going to do as the assignment is you're going to audit your current commitments. What do you do? What are you committed to? How does your day flow? Where does your energy go? Where does your focus go? And what are the things now you're going to, when you make a list, now you're going to either color code or underline or circle, whatever you need to do. What are the things that drain you, and what are the things that make you feel alive? You will feel it, by the way, when you just think about it. Make it a somatic experience. Allow your body to speak to you, because your mind will try to trick you. Your mind will go back to those defaults of what you have been trained, what you have been modeled, and what you have been, what you've learned, and also attached to the level of whatever success you have built and whatever is like habitual for you at this point. So allow your body to speak to you. And one way to discern between the two is whatever makes you feel alive usually feels light, usually feels expansive. It usually draws a little smile on your face, maybe makes your stomach tingle a little bit. Maybe you feel it in your navel area. That's where I usually feel things very grounded, very deep, very intense. So listen to those cues. And then we're going to go and you're going to redraw your energetic blueprint. And that's going to look like, if you need to, take a pen and paper, take colorful markers, glittery markers, if you will, whatever you want. What I did for myself is actually a huge piece of paper and glittery markers. And I went back and I looked at my business model. Like, what is that I am offering? How am I offering? What does that mean in terms of my own rhythm? And here's the thing. My own rhythm is very specific. You know, those, what is the word? Oh my goodness. When you set time aside and you box the time and you block down the time of your schedule for like 2 hours to do this work and then 20 hours or 40-minute sprints, whatever, that has never worked for me. And I would have arguments with my mentors, I would have arguments with my business partners and so on and so forth. I was like, that does not work for me, period. As a creative, I need a whole day. I need to be able to immerse myself without the interruptions, and that in itself is oxymoron when you work from home with little ones around and the dogs around. But, well, you know, that's just a detail here in this conversation. But what has worked for me is to have the extensive amount of time when I could really immerse myself into something, as well as realizing that my energy also fluctuates throughout the week. My energy on Mondays is very different than on Thursdays, very different than on Saturdays. So honoring that rhythm. Then, for women especially, honoring our own monthly cycles. And there was another thing that was totally foreign to me as an athlete. No one asks you, hey, what are you feeling right now? Where in your cycle are you? Oh, your first day of period, sure, take your day and go rest. Pfft. No one gives a crap about it. You just learn how to deal with it on top of the pain and the cramps and everything else. But the older that I'm getting, and the more in tune I am with my body, I'm like, oh, okay, I want to eat the entire box of chocolate because it's this time. And oh, of course I don't want to go out of the bed because it's this time. Of course my back is killing me because of that time. And of course I feel super inspired and super sensual and super soft and lovey and cuddly and everything else because it's that time of the month. And of course I feel really in my masculine energy right now, and everything is being done in a very different way with a very different approach. Recognizing those patterns and then working them into how everything else functions, including things in business and around home. And that's what I'm talking about when you're creating your own energetic blueprint. All of that are the flowers in that bouquet, proverbial bouquet that you're putting together. What I also did, I took it a step further, and I was looking at what are my priorities in this season for me with the kids where they are. And it became really clear that even though we're spending together 24/7, every once in a while I still feel guilty for not spending enough quality and present time with them. And I have my own list of places I want them to see. And I really want to be present because there were plenty of vacations we took where I was there, but it kind of wasn't there because I was already in my mind with, oh, it's this time and I still have to send out this email and I still have to finish this assignment and so on and so forth, right? You know how it goes. So what really became clear to me is okay, great. Now we are recreating my own seasonal map, so to speak, because summers are slow. I want to enjoy them. I always had, even as an athlete. Now, there's a caveat as somebody who has played for national team since I was 12, 13, 14 years old. Summers and school breaks meant training camps and international tournaments. So it was nothing slow about the summers, but I still got to spend a couple before that with my family, and they are like a holy grail of the idea of what summer is supposed to be. And I'm holding that vision for my family now, that they get to experience too, that I get to create it for them. So summers, very specific kind of offers that supports that time freedom and financial cash flow, so to speak. Then moving into spring, fall and winter and early spring, those are highly intensive seasons in basketball, and I thrive them naturally. It's still my cycle today, like September, October, November, December a little bit wonky because of the holidays, January, February, March, April, full speed. March, April, May, I would say peak performance, just like in basketball. That's times when you usually play tournaments. The championship games usually take place then. And having that intel, having that awareness allowed me to create a seasonal map for me. And with that, I actually created a season pass, the very specific premier service that it's the kind of work that I want to say cannot happen in a weekend workshop or in a 3-day retreat when you come here to Škofja Loka, when we spend the weekend together, when we reimagine the possible for you, when we rewrite your narrative, when we rewrite your own business plan or start working on your memoir, when we really get into the creative experience so you get to embody parts of yourself that you might have sacrificed. Yes, retreat is just a part of it. It's waiting for you in the summer, but the season pass, it's meant in either 6, 9, or 18-month increments. And it follows this flow too, very specific, so that you get the most out of that rhythm. And like I said, it's not a weekend workshop. It literally is a it's everything. I'm trying to find the word here, but the word literally escapes me because it's just like a living codex designed for you and built around you in that it comes in waves too. It's intense when it needs to be intense, and it has quiet season when you need time for integration. It has deep dives, it has speed dial support, like the whole 9 yards, but it's for this long-term journey when you're becoming that version of yourself and you're going through the transition, when you're figuring everything out. So it's not just this one-time dump and then you're on your own, right? That's what I'm saying. So Season Pass was born out of my own exercise of redrawing my own energy blueprint based on ultimately the legacy blueprint as a big picture. So yeah, this is what I wanted to convey to you, and it just didn't come through earlier. So I hope I can figure out a way to replace the two, so even the responses, the replays that are available are this version and not the previous version. But yeah, the homeworks are there. The very specific, let me see my notes. Yeah, there are very specific questions in the workbook also that are going to support you in this chapter of building your own legacy blueprint or tearing down your walls wherever you are. So make sure you grab that workbook. The link is still somewhere around here. It's available to you. But yeah, To recap the practical actions, we said first, audit your current commitments. Second, redraw your energetic blueprint. And above all, define or redefine your legacy markers. Those itself are like a living, breathing thing. They will continuously evolve, just like you are evolving. So if you feel like you have outgrown the ones you have already put in place, that is perfectly fine. Don't get scared. Honor that. And just get creative moving forward. You're the one who's writing the rules. You're the one who has a sledgehammer in your hands. You're the one who has the blueprints in your hands, and can also has the discernment and knowing what to knock down and what to keep, what to repaint, and so on and so forth. So just have fun with it. Alrighty, so this is all for today. I am so glad that you chose to be here, that you are here. If you have questions, your feedback, I am looking forward to receiving it, to reading it all. Otherwise, I will catch you the next time, and we're going to be talking about voice alchemy. It's going to be awesome. Take care.